Welcome back to News Conference on this Christmas Day. There are plenty of hotels in Southern California that have hosted heads of state, royalty, Hollywood's most famous names, but none quite like the Riverside Mission Inn. A hotel over 100 years old where one president was married, another president honeymooned with his wife Nancy, another president was insulted by a gift he was given here, and another president had his security detail fear he was about to be assassinated. It is one of California's most unique venues, the crown jewel of the Spanish revival movement of an earlier age. This time of year known for its Festival of Lights with its 4.5 million bulbs and over 400 animated figures, the Mission Inn in Riverside is a marriage of romance, architecture, and art. Stan Kentowski is the general manager. What makes this hotel so special?
It is special because people can really touch the history here. When you walk around this place, you really can be wowed by almost every angle. You turn and you discover something new, what I call the point of the discovery. And there's so many of them here that is just unbelievable. It takes more than a day or two to really embrace and learn about all aspects of this hotel. We have everything from place when the president got married to a chapel that is so unique to any hotel.
It is the mastermind of Frank Miller, who is part showman, part politician, globalist, pacifist, and innkeeper. Karen Raines is the curator of history for the Mission Inn Foundation.
Frank Miller, he was a very dramatic man. He believed in dramatizing what you do. It was his life's motto. He was known to actually dress up in monk's clothing. He would get on the local train with a basket of navel oranges, and he actually give them out to everyone on the train, telling them about the wonderful mission and inviting them to be his guest.
He was interested in politics, wasn't he?
He was. He was one of the local leaders here in Riverside. He was definitely a Lincoln Republican. And he was in many ways progressive for his time. He would hire just about any type of person as long as they were hardworking. He would give you a fair shot.
His hotel was built on the site of his father's much smaller Glenwood cottages. Inspired by the California mission system, it opened in 1903. Among its first guests, President Theodore Roosevelt, who had a restless first night.
The hotel here was built in 1903, and that's the same year that Teddy Roosevelt came here. So it was relatively new, and the generator didn't always last. And they were actually in the presidential suite in the ground level of the hotel, and the generator went out, the lights went dark, and Frank Miller rushed from his room to make sure that the president was okay. He walks in, and the president's on the ground, covered by Pinkerton service agents, and they had their guns drawn. That's because Teddy Roosevelt became president after McKinley was assassinated, so Pinkerton security thought it was an assassination attempt.
The power outage.
Yeah, the power outage. They thought somebody maybe cut the lines and were going to try to assassinate the president. Luckily, Frank didn't get shot when he walked into the room.
That visit was followed a few years later by one from President William Howard Taft. Taft's visit also raised security concerns in that it happened to coincide with what became a famous manhunt in Riverside County for a fugitive Paiute Indian, as depicted in the 1969 movie Tell Them Willie Boy Was Here with Robert Redford.
You're giving Taft a dinner at the Mission Inn, and I hear they're building a special chair big enough to hold all 300 pounds in.
Gentlemen, this chair was built especially for the president. But I don't mind telling you boys, we're pretty excited.
His famous Taft chair. He came here in 1909. He was actually the president right after Theodore Roosevelt. And Frank Miller had the chair built for Taft to make sure he was comfortable at the banquet. And Taft was a little sensitive about his weight, so he wasn't too pleased because it's a rather large chair, even too large for President Taft. But he did sit in the chair. He just refused to have his photograph taken in it. He conveniently forgot it, even though it was meant to be a gift.
Richard Nixon was married here.
Richard Nixon?
In what is now the Presidential Lounge.
Correct.
It wasn't a bar then.
No, he didn't get married in the bar. Actually, it was a 4-bedroom suite at the time when President Roosevelt stayed. Nixon was coming here pretty often because his aunt used to live in Riverside, so he visited her very often. He used to dine in the restaurants, he stayed in the hotel. So it was kind of natural that when he wanted to get married in 1940, and there was still time of war and the end of the Depression, so the finances were not there. He decided to have a small wedding, and became a kind of natural to be here. So he got married in that President Roosevelt suite.
And Ron and Nancy Reagan honeymooned here?
Absolutely, they stay on the honeymoon the first night here in one of our suite called Alhambra.
JFK?
JFK came when he was 25 years old, just graduated from the University of Stanford. He came here as a reporter. He came for the symposium, for the conference of the Institute of World Affairs. George W. Bush came here for the special banquets organized by the current owner, Mr. and Mrs. Roberts. He was here. He really enjoyed the architecture and walk around the property, and what we were told that the Secret Service was not happy because they wanted him inside and he wanted to explore the entire hotel.
In all, 10 presidents have visited the Mission Inn, all no doubt charmed by the 7 stained glass Tiffany windows brought over from a church in New York that now adorn the Mission Inn's St. Francis Chapel, which Miller built around an 18th century altar purchased sight unseen from a wealthy landowner in Guanajuato, Mexico. There's the art, such as Baltazar and Chavez's The Marriage of Mary and Joseph, William Keith's California Alps, Teddy Roosevelt's Charge Up San Juan Hill by Russian artist Vershbagen. Treasures amidst tributes, such as the Flyers Wall, honoring the aviators who have stayed here, signing their wings. John Glenn, Amelia Earhart, Jimmy Doolittle, Chuck Yeager, to name just a few. All part of a remarkable building that was once targeted for demolition for a parking lot, but was saved by one vote from the Riverside City Council, and years later brought back to life by a native son, Dwayne Roberts, here with his wife Kelly, the 2 flanking daughter, Casey Reinhardt. The goal? To help preserve the legacy of a man and the rich history of the California he loved.
Every piece of this property is so different and so unique. You have to really come and experience. It's a history that lives and breathes here.
The historic Mission Inn in Riverside, well worth the visit. We'll have some final comments after this.